Hey up and welcome to another bike review out of Apple Yards in Keighley, and today I'm going to be taking out the Benelli 502C, a mid-weight cruiser from the Benelli stable. In the meantime, and if you're in this neck of the woods, get yourself down here to Apple Yards, a premier motorcycle dealership here in West Yorkshire and part of the MotoGB group. So you can pretty much guarantee that if you want any bike from here, it will be available. So, without further ado, let's climb aboard the Benelli 502C and see what she's all about. Right, so here we are then, the Benelli 502C. Quite a distinctive looking bike. Seems to have a bit of a nod to the Ducati Monsters, in my humble opinion, and some might say equally, if not more, challenging in terms of its looks. I'll leave that for you to decide. We'll have a closer look on the walk around, but there she is, sporting a sort of bronze colour. And before I climb aboard, I'd just like to, because I've just met one of my subscribers who came here and ended up with a brand new classic 350 after he'd seen coverage of that bike on this channel. Peter, absolute pleasure to meet you, Peter. Pleasure to hold a very interesting conversation with you, and I'm sure everything will go fine with your bike. Okay, right then, let's crack on. So, first thing is, very flat-footed indeed, 750mm seat height on here, so even the most vertically challenged will not find this bike a problem from that particular point of view. Let's see what the TFT has to offer. Okay, so it's supposed to be a TFT. It's certainly got colours. It looks a little bit LCD-like, but it matters not. So we have the gear indicator in the middle, below that the digital readout of the speed, below that we have the mileage, to the left we have the fuel gauge and the temperature gauge, and around the periphery the rev counter. Let's fire her up. Okay, quite a quiet little hum there from this parallel twin. Let's see how we get on. Nice light clutch. Pretty good view from these teardrop shaped mirrors. And this, only the second bike that I've tried with the forward controls. The other one being the Super Meteor 650 from a few weeks back. Go have a look at that if you're interested in that bike. But the controls on this are a good bit further forward than on that bike. So I'll just get underway and we'll chat a bit more once we get rolling. Okay then, so here we go. So first impressions. Speedo's reading out in kph, not mph. So don't be accusing me of speeding. It's there, look, kilometres per hour. Pretty firm suspension. First impressions. Riding position, it's a typical cruiser riding position, and if a cruiser's your thing, you'll be more than happy with this laid back lounge lizard like riding position. Jury's out with me on forward controls, but we'll see. It seems far more pronounced on this bike than ever it was on the Super Meteor 650. And the other thing that strikes me as a parallel twin, it's not making that familiar rhythmic drumbeat that you tend to get, which leads me to suspect that it's not a 270-degree crank. It feels very linear. Smooth enough, but I would have to say at this point, and how much of this is attributable to the OEM exhaust I don't know, but it's a rather vanilla experience is the exhaust note. And I'm not entirely sure about the colour either, to be honest with you, but anyway, it's early doors. Let's see what the brakes are like. So, front. Yeah, front's pretty good. And after the bend we'll try the back. Nothing behind. Back. Yeah, average. Typical of most bikes, I think it's fair to say, except of course Royal Enfields that do tend to have quite a keen rear brake, but not so this. So yeah, it's a mid-weight cruiser, 500cc parallel twin cruiser, and this bike comes in basically at £6,000, 5,999. But I'm sure there are deals to be had. And the competition, well, 2 bikes spring to mind straight away. 3 bikes actually. 3 bikes spring to mind as possible alternatives for a bike in this category. Couple of Japanese bikes, the Honda CX500 Rebel midweight cruiser, and the Kawasaki Vulcan S, again a midweight cruiser. Both of them are about 700 quid more to buy than this, so if you're on a strict budget that may well be a consideration for you. The other one is the Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650. Again, about £700 more expensive than this bike. But that, of course, is it is a mid-weight cruiser by definition, but it very much has modern classic styling in the retro spirit of Royal Enfield, which this clearly doesn't. This looks more sort of it looks a bit Street Fighter-ish from the front, but it's a cruiser. So like I say, this might be Benelli's little nod to the Catty Monster, for example. And Benelli, of course, an Italian name, and the bike is Italian designed, but it's made in China. But having been made in China is then quality control checked back in Italy. And I have to say, having reviewed the Benelli Leoncino 800 Trail a few weeks ago, that the most common comment that Chinese bikes seem to generate is, well, after a few years, when it goes wrong, brackets, and it will go wrong, close brackets, good luck getting the parts and the aftermarket service. Right, well, it's very, very difficult on a relatively new bike to be able to comment in any meaningful or informed way about longevity and durability and endurance. and repair costs and what have you. But this bike's been around since 2019. It's now 2023, so it's got 4 years under its belt, and I don't see anywhere a reputation emerging for issues with servicing and repairs and spare parts and what have you. So it would be very unfair indeed to speculate on that aspect, other than to say that the fit and finish is generally very good. I cannot see anything on the face of it about this bike, except perhaps the quite obviously built to a price point TFT LCD there. But the rest of the bike, nothing about it whatsoever shouts out cheap or budget or suboptimal or anything like that. Just looks like anything you get out of the Japanese or German stables. So let's see what the fueling's like here in traffic. And very smooth. And as I've said, probably a little bit too smooth for my liking for a twin, for a parallel twin. There's not enough rock and roll going on for me. Okay, so let's see what she's like on a bit of the twisties. Yeah, nicely planted even on these slightly chewed up road surfaces. Quite flickable. Yeah, lovely on the bends. Don't often expect that of a cruiser. Yes, and so where, for me, forward controls a little bit disconcerting is when you're on an awkward steep gradient, adverse camber, not very good road surface, T-junction there with limited views to left and right, which requires you to be very snappy and spontaneous with your foot controls. And if you're not used to forward controls, it just becomes a bit more of a challenge there. I mean, something you'd obviously get used to, and if you're a seasoned cruiser rider, then no problem whatsoever. But that's the bottle tester for me, that kind of scenario. But I have to say, it's a very, very willing engine. Feels like more than its 500cc and 47 brake horse. We'll do the numbers on the Walkaround, but the numbers do suggest fairly conventional mapping for this sort of bike. 6-speed gearbox, no fancy quick shifter or blipper or anything of that nature. But yeah, a willing and responsive engine for sure. Just lacks a little bit of burble, you know. Bit too refined for my old school riding philosophy when it comes to twins. It sounds and feels more like an inline 4, or maybe it's a triple. So yeah, it's certainly got handling and it's certainly got adequate performance, and the braking's certainly up to the job, and it is comfortable, no question about that. Suspension a little bit on the firm side. I'm not entirely sure if the preload is adjustable on the rear. I will be surprised if it isn't, but we'll see when we have a closer look. Certainly no adjustment at the front. But yeah, I see no reason at all why you shouldn't be able to of course, cruise on a bike like this. tour on a bike like this, 2 up if you want, and she just feels like she'd keep going all day long in perfectly acceptable comfort. Obviously it's a naked bike, so there is no wind or weather protection, but by the same token there's no undue turbulence at this point. So pretty much what you'd expect, really. Now, one thing you're not going to get on this bike, you're never going to get on a cruiser, is a commanding view over the top of the traffic as you very much sat in the bike, almost like an old friendly sofa. And of course, the other thing you're looking for when you're touring is endurance out of the fuel tank, range. And this here bike has, would you believe, a 21 litre tank and a claimed 60 plus miles per gallon, claimed, which of course will always be a function of your style of riding, but 300 mile plus should be possible. Now that's BMW GS Adventure territory, isn't it? 300 mile plus on a tank. I probably wouldn't get that out of my ST1300 Pan-European, which has got nearly a 30 litre tank, 29 litres. So yeah, shouldn't be too much range anxiety on a bike like this. I mean, you just think of the numbers on a comparative basis. A 500cc parallel twin engine with a 21 litre fuel tank, without the need for further consideration of any other issues around performance. You could expect quite a range out of that, can't you? Out of that combination. So yeah, that can only be a good thing if touring any great distance is the name of the game for you. Do you like cruisers? Now the only thing for me is, it's not a critique of the bike in any way, shape or form, but the only thing for me is cruisers for me, and this was sort of the issue that I had with the Super Meteor. Cruisers for me are big bikes. They're the likes of the Harley Davidsons of this world, the Triumph Rockets, the big VN Kawasaki's, and the other sort of Harley Davidson tribute acts from the likes of Yamaha and Honda and Suzuki and Kawasaki. I mean, those are cruising bikes to my way of thinking. BMW R18, another example. They're all massive bikes, aren't they? And when you bring down that particular formula to 500-600 cc's, I'm not sure personally, from a stylistic point of view, from an aesthetics point of view, that it necessarily works. It just seems to me to be one of those designs that lends itself to scaling up, not scaling down. Others may disagree. And of course the other thing with this bike is it's A2 compliant. So you could ride this on an A2 licence if you're a young un, and if you're a young person and you're after your first bike and you're looking at something affordable and insurable, and you're into the cruiser style, then this would certainly be an option for you. I can see the appeal if you're into your cruisers. I don't know how much of the engine note my helmet microphone is picking up. It usually does quite well. It's a really good road helmet microphone, lavalier, whatever you want to call it. But I'm hoping you can see what I mean about the engine tone. It sounds more like an inline 4. Right, okay, so here she is then, the Benelli 502C. C for Charlie, C for Cruiser. And I suspect that face there may well divide opinion. So anyway, let's talk numbers and let's have a look around the bike. So starting at the front then, brakes, we have two 280mm pedal style discs and two Benelli branded radially mounted 4-piston calipers. So plenty of brake action going on at the front there. The suspension, we have 41mm inverted forks, and as I sort of alluded to earlier, pretty firm suspension, and it's not adjustable at the front there. And we have 17-inch wheels front and rear, sporting Pirelli Gran Turismo tyres. They feel nice and grippy on the bends, to be sure, and quite a stylised spoked front wheel there. Little bit Harley Davidson-esque, if you ask me. Tubeless tyres, of course. Coming round to the rear of the bike, got that humongous big hugger there. Don't know what you think of that, but I'm sure it's very, very functional. Hugger front and hugger rear. And the rear suspension, as you can see there, is a single shock absorber and doesn't appear to be adjustable. Nope, I'm not seeing any adjustment there, but I'm not going to swear to it. At the back we have a 240mm single disc sporting a single Benelli marked single piston caliper. Quite a trendy twin exhaust there, but quite a vanilla tone from that exhaust, it has to be said. I'm sure this bike will benefit from something a little bit sexier. We have LED lighting all round on this bike, and it's chain drive, but you don't get a centre stand. So you need an ABBA stand or similar for chain maintenance, or you do it the old-fashioned way. Got a reasonable sized pillion seat there, complete with backrest in the Cruiser style. And the engine there, we have a parallel twin liquid cooled double overhead cam 4 valves per cylinder engine, which puts out 47 brake horsepower at 8,500 RPM and 33 foot-pound of torque at 6,000 RPM. So similar performance to the other 3 bikes that I mentioned in this category. Obviously you have there the forward controls. Quite a torquey engine, quite a predictable engine map for a bike of this nature. If we come up top, there you have a 21 litre tank, which is quite sizable for a 500cc engine, and as I said, you should look to get about 300 miles out of a tank. So in terms of range, this bike an eminently sound proposition for touring. Up front, switch gear, very, very standard. Right hand side there, you have the kill switch, the hazard warning switch and the starter. And on the left hand side, no surprises there. High and main beam headlight setting, indicators, horn, and your pass and full beam trigger at the front there. The clutch is adjustable for span, as indeed is the brake lever. Some fairly stylish teardrop shaped mirrors there, and excellent view to the rear there, no problems at all. Very low riding position, has to be said. But yeah, I think there's a bit of a nod to the Ducati Monster going on there, but what do you think? Okay, let's take a look at me seated upon the bike. Okay then, so I am 6'1" tall with a 32 going on 33 inch inseam, and as you can see, I'm very flat-footed with still a good bend in the knee. So just a 750mm seat height on this bike, which makes it very manageable indeed. The weight is 216 kilograms, so not really a heavy bike. A good bit less than the Super Meteor, has to be said, but feels very light and nimble with low speed manoeuvring and on the bends. So yes, a low seat and a low weight overall. Certainly be appreciated by people probably in the sort of 5'7", 5'8", 5'9" height range. Very, very comfortable. Typical forward riding position. I'm not a lover of this riding position, but that's just me. There'll be people out there, I am sure, who absolutely adore the cruiser style forward foot pegs riding position. You sort of get used to it after a bit, but it's not for me on any bike, not just this bike, on any bike for that matter. So yeah, it's fairly comfortable. Bit of a stretch to the bars. I don't have the longest arms in the world. I don't have the shortest arms in the world either. And I feel there's a little bit of a stretch to the bars, but the bars are adjustable at the yoke there, so you could bring them forward without any difficulty. So really, I suppose in summary then, that if you're after a mid-weight cruiser, there are a number of options available. And this is probably about the best value for money. This is coming in at basically at £6,000 brand new, whereas its competitors tend to be around about the 6,700 mark or above. So if you're on a budget, this could well appeal to you. It's got a very, very willing, very tractable, very urgent engine. There are no issues with power delivery on this bike. It delivers in spades, no issues there whatsoever. No issues with comfort. And if I were to sort of comment on what I think is the Achilles heel of this bike, it's the lack of character from the engine. Now, not everybody wants character from an engine, do they? Not everybody wants rock and roll from the engine, but for a twin, I want a bit of rumble going on from a twin. And that's normally achieved by trying to give a parallel twin the characteristics of a V-twin by introducing a 270-degree firing order, 270-degree crank, which this clearly doesn't have because it's as smooth as you like. It feels and sounds like an inline-4, and I'm not a lover of inline-4 motorcycles, never have been. But some people absolutely love them, so it's an entirely subjective matter, entirely subjective. But you know, if you like the rock and roll of a thumping parallel twin with the characteristics of a V-twin, this wouldn't be the bike for you. But if you like the smooth power delivery of an inline-4 or a triple, this would be the bike for you. And as I say, it certainly beats the competition by several £100. And the only other issue, and I mentioned it earlier, is the TFT stroke coloured LCD is the only part of the bike that I can see where you might reasonably say that's built to a price point. It's pretty small, but you can tell by the presentation of the digits and the colours and the backlighting that it is built to a price point. But the rest of the bike, the fit and finish, I cannot find anything which remotely suggests that this bike represents the value for money side of the market. It does represent value for money, but it doesn't look like anything other than a premium fit and finish up and down the bike. So what do you think? The elephant in the room is always the fact that these are Chinese manufactured, and whether you take a position on that through reputational aspects of Chinese manufacturing standards, which I think would be misplaced, or for political reasons, and those are all very individual choices. But it's fair to say that the Benelli name, without Chinese investment, would have been gathering dust in the annals of motorcycling history. And I think it's great to see some of these established names being brought back to life through foreign investment, in this case Chinese investment. So you pays your money and you takes your choice. But yeah, if you didn't know it was Chinese made and you got on it, you'd be happy to believe that this was a very stylish Italian-made cruiser from an established name from motorcycling history. So there we go, the Benelli 502C midweight cruiser motorcycle. If you're in the market for a midweight cruiser motorcycle and you want a brand new bike with the 2-year warranty and all that goes with it, I think this is probably the cheapest one you're going to get. So in conclusion then, what can we say about the Benelli 502C midweight cruiser? Well, if you're in the market for a midweight cruiser and your budget's around about £6,000 and you're after a brand new bike with a full warranty, then this represents an awful lot of value for your money and is well worth considering. It's got a really peppy engine, which, although it lacks a bit of soul and character, certainly delivers in terms of performance. It's a very comfortable bike. You could ride this all day long, and because it's got a 21 litre fuel tank with only a 500cc engine, you could probably ride it all day long without calling in at a filling station. So it's got bags going for it. And as I say, if you're a lover of the cruiser style of motorcycle, but you want all the economy of scale that comes with something of 500cc's-ish size, then this should be on your final list. Right, so that's it for today. It's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from the Benelli. And until the next time, it only remains for me to say thank you once again to Appleyard's Motorcycles, and in particular to Kieran. And if you want to test ride this bike, this demonstrator, get yourself down there, be happy to sort you out. So yeah, until then, ride safe, be kind, and I'll catch you soon. Toodle pip.